You know, I just can't live with him.
The only time I feel alright is by your side.
I think Ray does love me very much, but he only loves me in the way he wants me to be loved.
All day and all night. All day and all night.
I think the sibling rivalry is there, obviously, but when it turns into something poisonous, it's horrible.
Many, many times I can't actually bear to be in the same room with Ray. I think when you look at it from a detached point of view, there's an awful lot that's gone on, which is actually, because of the difficulty, has made it nice. There's something different that happened because of it. The tension created a different imaginative place. The interesting thing was that really, I think, brought us together was music, particularly blues.
The Kinks started out as a blues band, but I have to tell you that they were possibly the worst blues band of the entire era. If they had stayed a blues band, I think they would have been in and out of the music business within a year of their first record. What the blues enabled them to do was to gain enough of a foothold for Ray Davies to discover himself as a songwriter.
You really got me going. You got me.
It was just raw energy. It's just like somebody chatting up a girl. And it starts with an opening, you know, when you make a good impression, da-da-da-da-da, and then you chat up the girl, you really got me going. Then when she gets bored, you change the key. See, I made those records, You Really Got Me, All Day and All the Night. And I thought I was making blues, and people said, oh, you sound like Noel Coward. I was playing blues music, but with my knowledge of the world and my experience, which was suburban London.
The Stones sounded American, the Beatles sounded American, but he, because he chose to sing that kind of suburban nasal whine, meant that people could find the Englishness in it, and so a line through the Jam and Madness, the Sex Pistols, through to Blur today. All those people could never have dreamt of doing what they turned out to be doing if it hadn't been for the way the Kinks and Ray Davies sounded.
There was something a bit more delicate about even their R&B singles. You Really Got Me. It didn't have the sort of guts that the Stones or the Beatles had. It wasn't raw in that sense. It was far more thought out. To sort of understand what happened in British music and what made it so special during the mid-60s, I think you have to go back to sort of plays and films where sort of British working class culture was the main topic, and I think that sort of translated into the pop music, and we had this sort of combination of musical R&B and working class imagery.
I wanted to write about the cold reality and the lies and the deceits and the guilt and all that. I mean, the 60s were just beginning to be shown to be a lie. Vietnam was happening. Bobby Kennedy was going to get shot, and all the fraud was beginning to be exposed.
The truth of it is that they had those experiences because they were working class to write about, and Davis luckily had both the eye to see these things and some way of expressing them, you know. And the Kinks were on their own doing that. In fact, when other bands were writing about expanding your head, flying across the universe in a glass onion while raping, murdering at the point of a gun, which the Stones and the Beatles were at the same time, they were writing about Dead End Street and Waterloo Bridge.
The Stones are pornographic and the Kinks were geographic.
Dirty old river, must you keep rolling, rolling into the night. People so busy, make me feel dizzy, taxi lights.
is almost making a little documentary about it, rather than singing to the girl. Isn't it a lovely sunset at Waterloo? I was singing from the observer, looking down, you know, the, what do you call them, the Pico.
Every day I look at the world from my window. Chilly, chilly is the evening time. Waterloo sunset time. Waterloo sunset time.
Pop music is often small scale, you know, me and my girlfriend holding hands in the back of the pictures, but he took the non-teenage experience, even as a very young man, Ray Davies, you know, reading newspapers on Sundays, watching rivers flow, interrelating with your neighbours, and made these the stuff of songs.
I had a party at my house. I'm not a very sociable person, but I had a party and lots of fashionable people came.
And the trouble with Ray Davies is that even when he was being a pop star, it was evident that this was not an ordinary bloke who you might be able to walk into a pub and say, "Can I get you a pint of bitter, my friend?" Because he might tell you to bugger off, frankly, and more like, or he might take a swing at you.
There was a fashion designer there who accused me of wearing flares, and I wasn't. I was wearing, well, they had a slight flare, but not amazingly so. And we had a punch-up, and his girlfriend beat me up as well, with a handbag. Or was it his handbag? But anyway, I threw them out of the house, out of my semi. And I thought, right, I'm going to get this. And I got angry and started writing a song.
They seek him here, they seek him there. His clothes are loud, but never square.
You could wear anything and people would think it was fashion. If you had the confidence enough to pull it off, you could get away with anything. And I thought in a way, I really liked that because it was kind of anti-art. And I think that anti-art is actually sometimes a lot more artistic than art. I kind of think the person who ever invented the word art is maybe a little bit pretentious.
I'm walking down the street and we just had dedicated follow fashion out, and I was trying to hide, and people came up to me and said, "Oh yes he is, oh yes he is." I said, "No, I'm not."
The amount of pressure which someone like Ray Davies was subjected to was quite extraordinary.
I was on television on Top of the Pops, I remember it, they'd taped it, and I tried to put the TV in the gas oven.
I'm not surprised that he's had the difficulties he's had.
You know, to say the least, acting irrationally.
A band was expected to produce 2 albums a year and 4 singles.
I love that sort of pressure when people want you to do something. It's great. You just have to force the work out. It didn't bother me at all. Obviously it had a side effect, you know, I wasn't too pleasant to live with. And I'm still very difficult to live with when I'm in that mode, because nothing else matters. Focus, total focus. But obviously there was the downside. The downside was that you get ill. Yeah.
It's always having breakdowns, dear. No, you're right. It was like... which breakdown we're talking about?
Ray is the thin line. I mean, they say there's a thin line between insanity and genius. And Ray's right there. He's sitting there on that line.
I think creative people have a lot of problems with what's going on in here anyway.
I'd just been really ill, and I don't know what was wrong with me. I think in my book I called it overload. It wasn't a nervous breakdown because I don't know, I just didn't know who I was. I was reacting against who people thought I was. So to recover from that, I just sat in a dark room. It was a very hot summer, and this must have been April, May, and I just wanted to write a plodding little song. And if you listen to the chords, they're very therapeutic.
We had this strange conflict in the Kinks. They were very rough working class boys. They were violent, they were crude. All these things very much came through in their stage act, in their personal lives as well.
My girlfriend's run up with my car and gone back to her ma and pa, telling tales of drunkenness and cruelty.
But perhaps because of their management in a sense, as much as anything, as much as the changes in British society that were going on at the time, Ray suddenly became extremely interested in the middle classes.
Help me sail away.
They originally had two managers, Robert Waite and Grenville Collins, who were the society duo that had discovered them.
What they were just two dandies, two city gents.
Live this life of luxury, blazing on a sunny afternoon.
All they knew about was getting gigs and society dues, which was great for Ray because he saw the world from both sides.
Rosie, won't you please come home, since you joined the Alpha Bosses, you don't know us anymore.
Whenever I have an argument with Ray about our background, I always say, you know, at least I remained working class, you became middle class.
It's a new world opens to them. They don't have them playing gigs, they don't have them playing down the marquee. They're playing in debutante parties. They're entertaining Greek millionaires in their homes. It was an incredible upheaval for them personally. And Ray Davies took that and he observed all that and he translated it into song.
And he plays a song to Charles, and he goes to the regatta. He adores the girl next door, 'cause he's dying to get at her.
Ray's being the type of personality that found it or learnt how to draw information from people, by observing them and how they would react and how they lived and everything. I think that became his art as a lyricist, I think. But a lot of obviously a lot of the musical input and a lot of the ideas when we met. We meshed together and became other ideas.
Dave's influence on the Kinks is quite fun in a way because it's a sense of gradual erosion there. I mean, he starts off being the leader of the Kinks.
Wonder where my baby's gone. Hope she'll do no wrong. Looking for my baby.
He used to sing quite a lot of the songs when they first started. And Ray wasn't singing at all, hardly anything. And then, of course, once he started writing, he started singing more, his confidence was up. And he effectively took over the group.
I always like to feel that 80–90% of it's collaborative musical effort. Most of the songs that we've worked on together, although they would be Ray Davies compositions.
Doesn't that annoy you though?
Yeah, it does.
Dave was very young. He was having a great time with the girls and everything on it else that was going on. I mean, you could see it. I mean, he was living it, loving it.
I like to be extravagant, flamboyant and all that kind of stuff. Remember my manager bought me a sword to go in my thigh-length boots.
One of the Three Musketeers. It was a stupid thing to do, buy him a sword. I think someone nearly got killed with it in the party. But,
I mean, you had the sibling rivalry there on the one hand between Dave and Ray, which remains to this day, and that was tricky. But on the other hand, you had this conflict between the brothers and Mick Avery.
as close to them as anyone could be without being in the family, as it were. So it's probably affected me more than other people, because I was that much closer. And they'd treat you as if, because you're so familiar, they'd treat you like they treat each other.
And that possibly brought out the worst in them. I mean, it certainly brought out the worst in Dave. There were fights. I mean, you had fights in hotels, blood was spilled. Most of their work, best work was done straight after the elastoplast had been applied in the studio, because there'd been a huge physical row about the music. What started off as probably quite fun developed a darker side.
It was volatile, to say the least. I mean, the only thing is, how many hours sleep a night do you want? Because if you're getting calls at 3 o'clock in the morning saying, you know, that there's been a fight on stage in Cardiff.
They get on stage at Cardiff. The first thing Dave does in the opening number, he starts having a go at Mick.
Whereas I probably got through the gig under a strained atmosphere, Dave wasn't ready for that.
Then he actually kicks his drum kit over in front of the whole theatre. They think it's part of the stage act, everybody claps and thinks great laugh, good theatrical stunt. Then Mick emerges from his dishevelled drum kit.
And that's when I hit him with the hi-hat pedal, as he kicked him with drums all over the place. There wasn't anything else to hit him with.
Floors him. Dave's out on the floor. Mick thinks he's killed him, runs out of the theatre, mobbed by fans, and he's running down the streets of Cardiff trying to get away because he thinks he's actually killed another member of the Kinks.
And I took fright and I was scared, thought I'd killed him. Ran out of the building and settled in a cafe down the road crying.
And he's being hunted for attempted murder, so therefore I'm thinking about getting hold of him. I'm thinking about the publicity, trying to kill that off.
They somehow have to salvage that, and everybody at the time that knew about it said this is the end, it's the end of the Kinks. But it wasn't the end of the Kinks, and after that they go on an American tour. A recipe for disaster, or what?
Won't you tell me, where have all the good times gone? Where have all the good times gone?
There was a tremendous undercurrent in Middle America. They loved the Beatles, yes, but there was this undercurrent of these limeys coming over here making money, you know, and we started rock and roll. Why are they doing this? And definitely with the Kinks, with our name and our attitude, because we really didn't care. We didn't have any showbiz tact, and possibly upset a lot of important people. So we got banned.
The unions didn't want us there for 3 years and they banned us.
For no reason.
Yeah, several different disagreements and...
I didn't do anything.
No, there was a scuffle at one point.
Oh, I did hit that guy, yeah.
It was a very tricky period for us because we were banned from, was it 66 to 69, I think it was. And of course, that was, Woodstock was in the middle of that. So the Who managed to gain a new lease of life by performing on that, and that opened up America for them. And whereas we were still stuck in England, we toured Scandinavia and did some stuff in Germany.
If we'd stayed in America, I think the music, I wouldn't have had that nice roll of English songs.
I think Ray Davies is probably the epitome of English rock and roll. He is original. His ideas seem to come out in a totally unique way and in a very English way.
We are the Sherlock Holmes, English-speaking vernacular. How to say Fu Manchu, Moriarty, Dracula. We are the office block, persecution, affinity. God save the little shots, China clubs and virginity.
The way the Kinks dealt with sex was quite funny in a way.
Went along to Knightsbridge to get a haircut. Found I'd made a mistake, gone into the ladies' salon. At least that's what I thought, till they said, take a seat, sir, won't keep you a moment. We're just attending to some of our other gentlemen. Apparently they're members of the Kinks who've decided to let the Ginger group, an avant-garde bunch of hairstylists, try out something new.
I suppose if a guy was sort of chatting up a girl, you know, sort of pull the blinds down and pouring a drink, he wouldn't put on a Kinks record around that time, because of the kind of sort of sexual overtones and not wholly masculine.
See my friends, see my friends, they cross the river. See my friends.
I mean, he brought a great sense of vulnerability to what he was writing about. And it was very, very subtle. I mean, there were homoerotic elements in a song like See My Friend.
It's no big deal. It's about you know, lost love. But again, people picked up on the undercurrent of crossing the river. Are you crossing over to the other side, dear boy? That sort of thing.
It was really fun. It was like almost a time before the word cynicism and before the words like bisexual and before gay. We used the word gay in a different way. But we regarded it as fun. You know, we would like rough kids from like working class background and suddenly been thrust into this sort of world of like endless possibilities. You could do anything you like and get away with it almost.
I used to take Ray down transvestite clubs and have an entertaining evening and introduce us to different people. So that was good for Ray, you know. It was good for a writer, and he could. Whereas I just think they're amusing characters, he could write about them.
I met her in a club down in Soho where you drink champagne. It tastes just like cherry cola. No, it's not good enough. When I get to the word C-O-L-A cola, I want all the girls to sing C-O-L-A cola. When I get to the word L-O-L-A Lola, I want everyone to sing L-O-L-A Lola.
Well, they had every right to. Yeah, why not? I'm not the only person that did it. It's just I did it first. It's, in a pop song. Although I'm sure other songwriters did it before me. It's just that they were smarter and they concealed it better. Mad about the boy. You know, it's just that I was known for making that particular record.
Bars and bars, well, because it's a mixed up, metal up, shook up word, it's a la 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 la. Well, I left home just a week before. I never ever kissed a woman before.
I think Ray will probably go down in history as being probably the greatest rock and roll lyricist of this age. The thing is, I don't like paying him compliments because he's got a big enough head as it is.
When you're talking about songs, and that's the reason why I like him, I don't give a shit about the image of the Kinks. You know, whether they're cool or uncool, it's just that I thought the songs were fantastic.
I've seen grown men cry because of the abuse and the crap that me and Ray, mind games and shit that's going on in the room. And when you think, if you go beyond that and you look at the work as the most important thing, you know, hopefully that all the personal stuff will sort of dissipate with time, whereas the work will be there for years.
I've always been wary of doing interviews because my work is better than I am. I just don't live up to it. I don't surpass it. You know, I'd love to be as good as Waterloo Sunset.